And welcome to the Barry Foster Show, coming to you from the Ridge Florist Studios in beautiful downtown Avon Park. If you have any thoughts, ideas, or suggestions, guests you'd like us to interview, or topics you'd like us to take care of, please put them in the comments below. We'll do them as quickly as we can. Always remember to like and subscribe. It's been pointed out to me, I should tell people, you can subscribe to this YouTube channel at no additional charge. The subscription here is absolutely free. We don't charge a nickel to do that. Okay, we are delighted again to have District 83 Representative Kaylee Tuck with us, talking about some of the things that have happened since last we talked. And Kaylee, good to have you with us, my dear.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me again.
Since last we talked, when we talked, there was still a budget in the offing, but now the budget has been signed, sealed, and delivered. Are you kind of happy with the way it came out?
I am happy with the way it came out. I'm not super happy with the process, obviously. I think we were waiting until the last minute. I think the budget was officially signed on June 30th, which, if it's not signed by July 1, then we're in trouble. But I think I'm happy with the way it came out. I think it was a fiscally conservative budget. It was um, lower than last year's budget, the final number, and I believe the fact was the past 2 years we've lowered our budget year over year, which is pretty incredible for the size of our state. So I was pretty happy with the overall outcome.
Were there things that held it up? Were there fist fights in the cloakroom? Were there things going on that they kind of held it until they've said we've got to get this done, and we'll settle this up next year?
So what I think was the holdup was the veto list. Um, as you and your listeners know, the governor has line item veto power over the budget. So looking at projects, seeing, should this really be funded by state dollars or could it be funded locally? And luckily, we didn't have too much of that in for my appropriations. I think I'm proud of our governments, our local governments, in saying that when they ask for something, they actually really need it. So we weren't too concerned, but I think the veto list was the holdup.
Here, been in being in smaller counties, Highlands, Okeechobee, Hardy, and Glades. I think is that all of them. Um,
Yep.
the ask is a little bit smaller than they are in, say, Hillsborough or Miami-Dade County. I mean, the ask is not quite as, you're not asking for tens of millions of dollars to get things done.
So what's funny is it's actually the reverse. My counties are able to ask for a little bit more. I try to tailor their expectations. So we in the House have a rule that if the project cannot be funded at least half in the initial budget, then it's dead in the House. Now, the Senate is a separate animal. If it's funded in the Senate, then it's still alive. But it's always better to have a project on both sides. And in the House, if it's not funded by half, then it's dead. And we also have a matching requirement. So if a local government asks for money, then they have to show that they have matching funds to what the state is going to bring in, which puts a skin in the game for local governments. Now we have a little bit more leeway in my area because all four of my counties are fiscally constrained counties, so we have a little bit more leeway. But I try to hold my local governments to that match as much as I possibly can, just so we know that yes, it's a project you actually want, and you're not just trying to throw spaghetti at the wall for these initiatives.
Just to see what sticks.
Yeah, exactly.
Kaylee, one thing that really has come out of this session, which is kind of a surprise to me, is the move now to try to do away with property taxes. It's interesting. Property taxes is not something the state has much say over. It's the counties that do that. I know that the head of the Republican Party put together a hashtag rollback now, trying to get counties to go to their rollback rates. It has not really gotten very much traction. But I'm seeing reps coming out of the woodwork now. There's at least three or four who are now championing things, votes and things, to get the property tax eliminated in the state of Florida. Uh, how, what's the status of that?
Yeah, it'll be interesting. So what's what a lot of folks didn't understand when there was a big push towards the end of session to eliminate property taxes is that property taxes are constitutional. So to eliminate them completely, we'd have to do a constitutional amendment to put it on the 2026 ballot and let the state of Florida vote on it. Similar to if we wanted to, whenever we up the homestead cap or we added a new homestead exemption, you'll see it on the ballot. We have to do that because it's constitutional. We can't just amend the Constitution without some voter input. In terms of the status, I really do think something will be done this coming session. Now, I don't know what exactly that is, um, and I am glad we're taking a little bit more time to look at it because I think we need to be really careful on what we do. It's really easy to say that you can eliminate property taxes, and I think for homesteaded property owners, we absolutely should look at either a reduction or complete elimination. That being said, I don't necessarily want to make it easier for corporations to own property. I think one of the big deterrents for a corporation buying up, you know, 10, 20 single family homes at a time is because of the property taxes and the non-homestead uh, status that the house has. I don't want to encourage that. And I also want to be careful with the local government's budget. In a community like ours, your police, your fire, your teachers, your county services are largely funded by property taxes. And while I think there are different avenues for funding those services, one of the initiatives discussed was to have the state fund those services through sales tax. And do we in Highlands County want Tallahassee telling us how much money we need for those services? So I think there's a lot of moving parts here. And I think the narrative got skewed a little bit towards the end of session on what actually could be done and should be done. And so I'm glad we're going to have a more robust conversation. But rest assured, you will see something regarding property taxes on the ballot this coming election year. Um, and it'll just be figured out in this next session what that actually is.
Yeah, as a conservative, I know I don't mind paying for police, fire, and ambulance. Maybe roads, things that people arguably can't do for themselves. But how we get there, is going to be very interesting to see. It's nice to say, oh yeah, I wouldn't have to pay property taxes anymore. Did any of the county commissioner or city council members come to you and say, hey, look, how are we supposed to pay for what we're doing here if we don't have property taxes? Have you heard any discussion from that end of the spectrum?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, and from the cities and the counties, um, we uh, we had a lot of discussion. So the Florida League of Cities has something called League Days, and in my communities, I have Treasure Coast League of Cities, I have Suncoast League of Cities, and I have I think Ridge League of Cities. They all came to me. It's a conglomerate of all the cities in that region. So I had coastal cities, I had inland cities, I had everybody coming to me about that. And then a lot of county commissioners came to me both individually and during, it's called Florida Association of County Days in Tallahassee, and they all came to me. I think what would be really good is so the speaker appointed a special committee in the House to review these property tax issues and some potential plans that we can put together. And I think it would be really good to do a listening tour. Florida Association of Counties does their summer conference. Florida League of Cities does the exact same thing. And I think it would be good to just do a one-day town hall and televise it, put it on the Florida channel, and let local electeds tell us kind of what's going on. Um, Now, I'm not going to say that everybody's going to, be genuine or a good actor necessarily, but I do think there are genuine concerns that our local governments are expressing that we should be listening to.
It's always good to bring these things up and have discussion about them, and get the pros and cons and see if you can hammer something out. A couple of things came out of this legislative session. Excuse me. A couple of things came out of this legislative session I found were very interesting. One, I just did an article, or I did a podcast with John Holloman about was SB 180, which he portrays as something that is basically a land developer's dream, where they can come in and pretty much tell city and county government what they want to have developed and how they want to have it developed. It was encased in an emergency management measure, But what I'm hearing from you is it may not be quite as wide ranging as was portrayed. Can you kind of talk about SB 180 a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the specific because SB 180 it's a long bill. I think it's 50 pages or something like that. And it's our emergency management package for this year. So I think the provisions that have been specifically referred to are Section 18 of the bill relating to restrictions on a local government after a hurricane. So what this bill did, and it came from a lot of complaints we were getting from residents and developers about the reconstruction efforts after a hurricane, particularly in the kind of West Coast, Helene, Milton landfall region. So what this bill does, and what this provision does, is it says for 1 year after a hurricane makes landfall, a local government can't completely eliminate construction, reconstruction, or redevelopment of property. The specific word used is moratorium, so you can't put a moratorium on construction, reconstruction, or redevelopment. You can't pass a more restrictive or burdensome amendment to a comp plan or the land development code, and you can't pass a more restrictive or burdensome process for getting a development order through. Development order meaning, site plan, development permit, anything that's in that 163 definition, which is pretty broad. You can't pass a more burdensome procedure. And while it sounds really scary when you look at the language, I think the one thing to remember is that it's retroactive from August 2024. So anything passed after August 2024 is up for debate. But if you have your ordinance in place as of right now, like for example, I know of a local government that is on the East Coast. They haven't had any amendments to their land development code since like 2020. Um, Everything in their land development code is still enforceable with this law in place. So any development restrictions, any zoning ordinances, anything like that are still enforceable. The local government can't pass anything more restrictive that may be seen as hindering redevelopment after a hurricane. That's all it's doing.
So was this kind of in response to some communities who saw this natural disaster as a way to kind of dial back on some of what they might have perceived as overdevelopment, and so they would be able to dial things back using this as a I hate to use the word excuse, but I will use as an excuse. Is that kind of what we're talking about here?
That may very well be the case. Now, I heard a lot of complaints. So after I can't remember if it was Hurricane Helene or Milton, after the first one that hit last year, I went over to St. Pete Beach and was helping the representative in that area clean up her house and her neighbors' homes. And the number one complaint that I heard was regards to the permitting process and how slow the permitting process was. And I think it's a function of one, maybe slow process, but two, the manpower it takes to actually take in that volume of permits and review plans and things like that. Especially when some of those older homes may not have been up to FEMA standards, may not have had the elevation they needed or anything at the federal level. So the number one complaint I heard was the permitting process, and we did put something in this bill that says that a local government has to, as of May 1 of each year, update when permits are needed, have an expedited permitting process after a hurricane and things like that. But I do think it may have been in response to local governments trying to um, curtail some overdevelopment that they may have seen as well. I'm not going to say that's what I heard, but I could definitely see that as a potential.
Okay, and the second one was SB 56, which I was just not aware of until very recently, but it kind of mirrors Marjorie Taylor Greene's bill about uh, weather control and contrails. And can you can you talk a little bit about that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And this was a really neat bill. So this was a bill that was directly in response to constituent communication. I have never heard of this before. I hadn't heard of it until several months before last session started, and then all of a sudden I started getting, you know, hundreds a day sometimes emails about weather modification. So I'm not sure what the actual impetus for those constituent emails were, but every single one of us received just hundreds of constituent emails, thousands even, talking about this weather modification and the concern. And Ileana Garcia and Kevin Steele crafted bills. It ended up being Ileana Garcia's version, SB 56. And basically, what it says is there is a, I'm not going to call it a hotline. It's more of a form you can fill out. So DEP, the Department of Environmental Protection, is creating a division within their department that is going to specifically handle these complaints, tips, whatever you want to call it. So it's a form you can go fill out on their website that says, hey, here's my location, here's what I saw. I think it may be weather modification device, and they will investigate it. If there's anything that can stick, they can issue fines to whoever may be involved with weather modification. So you're not allowed to inject anything into the atmosphere that would potentially modify the weather. And what was cool about this process, so a lot of people don't know kind of what goes into making a bill, but whenever a bill starts moving through the committee process, the different committees that it's assigned to issue a bill analysis. And the bill analysis is created by a bunch of really, really smart people that we have in the House. So it's an attorney, it's a subject matter expert, it's a policy chief, it may be somebody who worked in that industry in the real world, or has worked at a department or an agency, and they put together this bill analysis for anybody who doesn't know the background. And what I didn't realize is they were able to point to specific studies and experiments that had been done to see if weather could be modified. And these experiments have gone back to the 70s. I just didn't know that it was actually a thing. So it was a really big learning experience for me. And I think the product turned out really well. So now the ag folks were a little bit concerned about, for example, crop dusting, and is that going to be a problem? But I think we tailored it to make it narrow enough, and I think it turned out really good.
Well, crop dusting falls a little short of weather modification. I mean, you have to. I don't think that changes too much, but you do see where I live. You do see some of these contrails crisscrossing the skies. The plane is a little too high to see the tail number. I can't say, oh yes, it was a Stearman up there, and here's the tail number. All you see is a little silver dot and these contrails going out. So it's really kind of hard. You can only tell them where and when it happened and hope that they have some kind of records of what aircraft were in the area at that time. You know.
Sure, and I'm interested to see. I think it's by October 1 they have to have the division set up and the website ready to go. So I'm anxious to see what that's going to look like.
Hey, we're kind of in the downtime. I guess silly season is what you call it. I'm not sure, but do you have any kind of inclination of what's going to be coming up in our next legislative session? Anything that's kind of come down to you saying, Kaylee, we'd like you to file a bill that says this, that, or the other thing?
There is an issue that I have been working on for the past two sessions that I just haven't found a good way, a legal and a good way to do it yet. The number one issue that I have with from constituents is the lot rent in mobile home parks. So I get several complaints about the lot rent going up exponentially in mobile home parks. And I don't know if it's due to rising costs or if there's an investor involved trying to buy out, or corporate buyout, things like that. But I have been trying for the past two sessions to develop something that will curtail lot rent, um, with the understanding that statutorily we cannot pass anything that is rent control. So it's been an exercise in some legal weaving that I have not been able to figure out just yet. But I'm working with staff now to try to figure out if we can do something similar to a homestead exemption for the lot and things like that to keep the prices down. So that is
It's supply and demand, and I think we both know that a lot of the blue state population is fleeing to red states, Florida being one of them, and they're not building houses quickly enough. So, yeah, I can see that the supply being limited and the demand going up. You're probably going to have people who are willing to pay a lot more than what we've been paying to maintain our residences.
No, that's absolutely right. And I think when I've talked to a couple of people, they say, oh, well, if it just gets too expensive, then they can move out. And once the lot rate gets too expensive, then the market's going to say it's too expensive and nobody will live there. And it's tough because a lot of folks on fixed income really can't afford to move either. But I think you're absolutely right. The supply is not meeting the demand, especially here. We're a growing population, so trying to figure out if there is an avenue for relief, and if so, how, is going to be my big focus this year. In terms of other initiatives, I don't really have much else. I've been approached about a couple of bills that are, for example, business law cleanup bills, things like that. Um, but I'm not sure if I'll tackle anything else. I'd love to focus on that lot rent issue. And then I'm taking more of a leadership role in my chairmanship, and I'm also in the majority office this year. I don't know if I will be this upcoming session. The assignments change quite a bit in this next year, but I just want to dive into that leadership role and see what I can do with it. I think rural healthcare and rural access to healthcare is one of my biggest focuses, and if I can dive in and learn more about how we can make it better, I'd love to do that, even if my name's not on the bill.
Anything in tort reform. I, as a talk show host, have been approached by several people asking me about tort reform and third parties spurring, you know, uh, lawsuits to try to get more money or to try to get more changes in law. Is there anything on the horizon about tort reform of which you are aware?
I think some of the bills that died last year you may see again this year. For example, the attorney's fees provision, the damages evidence of damages bill that was out last year, and I think it'll be interesting to see the appetite. The strategy last session was there was a premises liability bill that I think it was unanimous through the committee stops. There was an attorney's fee bill that was kind of 50-50. And then there was a medical damages bill that just, there was no appetite for it. Um, and what was done by the bill sponsors was to combine them all to see, how much of an appetite there was and which one would kind of prevail. And they all died. And I think that's a probably an indication of what you'll see next year. And I don't know that the same strategy will be used because I think there is an appetite. So when we did, um, and I can't remember, I think it was HB 813 in 2023. That was the big tort reform package, and it shifted everything in favor of insurance companies. And I think in some ways that was a good thing. I don't know about y'all, but for the first time in my home ownership career, I saw a reduction in my homeowner's insurance. And so I think that worked. However, I think there is an appetite to make sure that people who do actually need to file a lawsuit against their insurance company is able to afford to do so. So I think there may be an appetite for the attorney's fee one. In terms of the medical damages, I don't see an appetite for it. And I may be very wrong about that, but I can tell you I don't have an appetite for it. So I think there's a balance there, but I mean, we see tort reform bills every single year. What form it'll be in, I have no idea. But we will definitely see some tort reform stuff get filed at least. Whether it moves or not is a different story.
Kaylee, the legislature has up to 4 2-year terms before your term limited out, and the slang is the high school slang. You start as a freshman, go to a sophomore, junior, then senior. You're in the middle of your junior year. You were a young junior. Now you're going to be an older junior. As you go through, is it easier to shepherd some of your things through the process? Does it become as you build seniority? Is it easier to do that?
I certainly think it is. Now, it's funny, the further up I get, the less time I have to do things. Last session, we could run 7 bills. I ran all 7 bills, and all of them were moving at one time or another. And a chairmanship, the majority office position, things like that. It's really hard to put all of your energy towards something important when you have that many balls in the air. So I think with more responsibility, you'll see me running fewer and fewer things, and you'll see me shepherding and behind the scenes on more and more things. In terms of what more you can get done, I think you really see it in the appropriations process. So, my name may not be on a bill. I may, be intimately involved with getting it through the process, but my name might not be on it. But when it comes to the appropriations, you have a lot more say in what gets through and what gets approved, and then you have a lot more clout when it comes to maybe calling the governor's office and saying, hey, this is really important, please consider not vetoing this. So I think in terms of the real impact on the community, you can definitely see the difference between freshman year and right now and probably senior year as well.
You're running one more time, right?
I am. I've already filed. So I am definitely running one more time, God willing. And I we have a really good, so they call them election classes. So we are the class of 2020, and we have a really good, really unique election class, and we're, a talented class, and shockingly, most of us have stayed. Um, so typically, when you come in with an election class, you lose about half the people to attrition, to maybe there's a Senate seat that opened up, a congressional seat. In this case, with President Trump taking a lot of Florida people, you had a lot of congressional seats open up. You may just have life get in the way and people leave. And we've only lost 2 class members. And one of them was Fred Hawkins, and he's the new, not new now, I guess, but our college president.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool to see everybody go to different roles, but yeah, our class has stuck around quite a bit.
So you've got 3 years to plan. Have you thought about, are you going to stay in public office? Are you going to go back and be an attorney, or do you have any ideas of moving to, I don't know, a congressional seat perhaps?
I'm not sure if the perfect opportunity presented itself, then I could see myself going for it. But otherwise, I'm at this period right now where I just really love my day job, and I haven't been in that position in a very long time. So I may just kind of dive into that and enjoy working a little bit. Now, I mean, that's 3 years away, so if the perfect opportunity came about, I would definitely consider it. But right now, being full-time employed sounds good.
And for the folks who don't know, your day job is you're a land use lawyer. And
Yeah,
do you have
yeah,
any?
I do land use, local government, things like that.
Is that hard, having to talk about doing things that are going to make your job easier or more difficult while you're while you're in the middle of doing land use work as an attorney?
So what's interesting is, and I actually joined the firm I'm with now because I wanted to transition. I represent a lot of local government entities. So I have one city where I'm the city attorney. I'm general counsel for a school district on the coast. And I have a lot of local government entities. So what's been really tough is, uh, having to see these bills that could negatively affect my clients, but could also positively affect them as well. Like, for example, the emergency management bill that we discussed. There's a lot of really good things for local governments in there, but then there's a lot of hand tying. So that's been really difficult, is to try to explain to them, like, hey, this is good for you, but it's also bad for you, that kind of thing.
I got good news and I got bad news.
Yeah, exactly. I got good news. There's a lot of grants available. I got bad news. You can't pass ordinances like that anymore. So, that kind of thing.
You've done this for such a long time. Are you planning at any time to have like a town hall meeting and an open session where you can sit down with 50 or 60 of your closest friends and have them ask you about state legislation, or you can explain to them about some of the things that are coming up?
I would love to. My biggest fear is that nobody would show up.
Oh,
Um,
I think you have the opposite problem. I think a lot of people would show up. Some to say thank you, and some to ask you questions, and to clarify, because there's a. I'm not telling you anything. There's a lot of misunderstanding about state government, but I think it'd be a wonderful thing to have an hour with Kaylee, over at the Jacaranda or something. I think that'd be a wonderful thing.
Yeah, what I would love to do is, depending on how this next session goes, I would love to have a like after session town hall and then discuss. There will be ballot initiatives on this next ballot, and if if I do what we think if we do what I think we're going to do with property taxes, and put something on the ballot, I think there'll be a lot of questions about that. So I would love to do a town hall by myself, maybe a joint town hall with some local officials and do something to that effect and actually explain and have a real conversation about what that's going to look like and what that session looks like. So yeah, if people show up, I would certainly do it.
In the meantime, you have offices in most of the counties. Right here, I know Dana Orr is right down there across from our friends at Strangely Warmed Coffee. So you're right down there in downtown Sebring. But do you have in now Hardy? You don't have an office yet. You're still looking. Is that right?
Yeah, I don't have an office yet. I was looking for some, but they are going through a really big government building restructuring right now. So we're looking for some private, but we've been so busy with constituent stuff and post-session stuff that we haven't really put our focus on that. And then I have an Okeechobee office in the Chamber building in Okeechobee. And then Glades County, I try to make it to Glades County at least once every couple weeks. I have some clients south, so I'm traveling through Glades County, probably every other week and trying to stop in and say hi to folks.
In the meantime, if there's people want to like send you an email, is there a good email to send to you to say, like, Kaylee, I'm really concerned about this, that, or the other thing?
Oh, absolutely. So it's Kaylee.Tuck, and I'm happy to text this to you if you want to put it on the in the caption.
I shall.
It's Kaylee.Tuck at flhouse.gov. And then I always say to copy my aides as well. If it's a local issue, it's Dana. So it's dana.orr, O-R-R, at flhouse.gov. And then if it's Tallahassee issue, it's Brylan. So it's brylan.cell at flhouse.gov. And that's the best way to reach me. Now, I always caution folks, if you send it to just me, depending on what's going on that day or that week, I get thousands of emails into my house inbox. So I always say to send it to my aides as well, because they will make sure it gets to me. But yeah, that's the best way to reach me. And then, yeah, my office is right downtown, and Dana loves to have visitors. So if anybody wants to stop in and talk, say hi. I try to be in the Sebring office about twice a month. So, I may happen to be in there as well. But Dana, I always say Dana's the real politician because he really knows how to get things done.
And if you didn't get that, just send it to the Barry Foster Show at Gmail. I'll give you Dana's cell phone number. It'll be just fine. Okay, so
There you go.
Kaylee, thank you so much for your time and running through some of these bills and the budget situation for us. Anytime you want to be on, you let us know. We love having you on.
That sounds great. I think I'm coming to see y'all next Thursday, right?
I'm hoping. I'm hoping.
Yeah.
Well, listen. You've been listening to the Barry Foster Show here on YouTube. If you have any guests you'd like us to interview or topics you'd like us to broach, just put them in the comments right here below. And remember, if you want to subscribe, it comes at no additional charge. As we continue to look for truth, justice, and the American way, this is Barry Foster, and we'll see you next time.